Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Meditation 9. Today we will finally not be with the body anymore, or if you liked being with the body, we will, because you have choices today. So we'll be with either the breath or the body as a primary object. We'll also choose how we relate to the objects, whether we're using mental noting, and we'll also choose the closed versus open quality of our practice. So I'll guide you through each of those choices, set you on your way, and today is a great day because it's when you can really start to come into your own practice and direct it yourself. So there will still be instructions, but they will be a little lighter, and this is again a 30-minute meditation, so you'll have plenty of time to start to come into what your practice will be in just 3 days when we're done with this challenge. So congratulations if you've made it all of this way, meditating longer than most people do when they're just starting out with meditation and really getting a full taste of the landscape. So that's really what I've been hoping to provide, more than headspace or calm or what's already out there. I want to give you a broad tour of what's out there so that you can know, and then you can know how you want to practice and ultimately be able to practice on your own without the guidance, because guidance is a bit of a double-edged sword. It really helps. It can get you in the door, but the challenge that comes with not having guidance and directing your own practice is also an opportunity to really deepen concentration and further your practice on your own. So a lot of the bigger turning points in my practice and experiences I've had have been on my own. Pretty much all of them have been, when I'm practicing without guidance. So we'll start to make that transition. Don't worry, slowly. I'll still be giving you guidance, and we'll go for half an hour starting in just a second here. I'll get the timer ready. All right, good morning everyone. Hey, I'm waving back mentally. Good to see all of you who have been regularly here. It's really cool to see the discussions that have come up. You might have gotten in contact with each other and be able to support each other's practice. If you want to join my meditation community and stay in touch with what's going on in the future with meditations over Zoom and such, the link is in my bio on Instagram. All right, so let's settle in. Let's allow the chaotic energy of Instagram Live to fade away. Get a comfortable seat, get ready to go inward. I'll start the timer now for 30 minutes. All right, so let's close our eyes, settle into the body, settle into the seated position, feeling the contact between our body and the seat. Noticing whatever sensations are predominant through the whole body. And as you start to notice sensations through the body, you might become aware of the sensations of the body breathing. Our old friend, the breath, familiar object of attention. So this brings up your first choice that you'll make for yourself, which is, what do you want to be the primary object of attention? So for all of these choices, you have choice, but also you want to be firm in your choice. So you don't want to go back and forth through the whole meditation. It's easy for changing techniques to become essentially a form of mind wandering during meditation. We, are with the breath for a while, we get frustrated, we're with the body for a while, we get frustrated, we go do some pointed practice, and that's not what we're going for, because we don't want to respond to frustration or to difficulty simply by changing our practice. We can do that over the long term, and you can make a different choice tomorrow and the next day. But for today, you want to pick an object of attention and commit to it. So it could be the breath, and if you're feeling the breath, it could be in many different areas. the inflow and outflow of air through the nostrils, the abdomen rising and falling. If you pick the body, you have options there as well. You could be aware of the body as a whole, points of contact in the body. You could hone in on the area between the nose and the upper lip if you really want to do a pointed practice. And you could also use a really broad, open object of attention, like white noise in the room, vague sounds in the room. When the mind is really quiet, you can tune into what some call the sound of silence, just sort of the background sound quality, even if there are no particular sounds. So breath, body, sound, or something else. Go ahead and pick your primary object of attention. Resting your attention here with this anchor. This is the place from which we relate to other experiences, so other experiences will, of course, come up. The mind will wander. We'll hear noises. We'll think thoughts, we'll have feelings. So we allow the attention to go those places. It's not as if we could stop it, but we notice when it goes those places, and we return it back to the breath or to whatever primary object of attention you're using. The second major choice that you have to make is how you're going to relate to these other objects of attention that come up and pull you away from the primary object of attention. So we learned a technique of mental noting that's very robust. We can use mental noting to describe almost anything, and you can use mental noting to describe whatever you would like. So if you want to use the big umbrella of mental noting that we learned and do a noting practice, it's a very powerful, robust practice, keeping the mind engaged with what we're doing. So noting, hearing, seeing, smelling, probably not tasting, but who knows, feeling, thinking, and even more particularly planning, remembering, analyzing, pulsing, vibrations, heaviness, tension. So if you can note it, you can observe it as a detached observer, creating some space from it, space to see your own reactivity and to not get sucked into any reactivity. To view everything that comes up as something impersonal, something impermanent, it arises and passes away, and something that isn't worth clinging to or pushing away, but that you can just let be. So if you want to use mental noting across the board, use mental noting. If you want to only use mental noting for thinking or for more challenging objects of attention that really pull you away and are sticky, you can do that. And if you want to have a completely nonverbal practice, so we have a primary object of attention, we have the whole field of everything else that can come up. We have how we relate to it in terms of mental noting. And the final major decision is how we relate to it in terms of investigation versus concentration. So you can choose to be more investigative or more concentrated in this practice. To be completely concentrated would be to just be in a closed practice with one little area of the body or the breath, one object of attention, shutting everything else out and just concentrating on that one thing. So that's not what we're doing, but shy of that, as long as you're more open than that, you can be as open or as closed as you want. So in a more closed practice, other objects of attention come up, things pull our attention away. We quickly let them go and return to the primary object, solidifying the primary object, focusing on it with concentration. In a more open practice, you can feel free to let the attention be with something else for a longer period of time, to investigate these other things that come up. So you're with the breath, for example, and a fear comes up, thinking. So you notice it, and then an emotion is tied in with that. And the emotion has some physical sensations you feel in the gut. So rather than just running back to the breath, you actually feel those. You be with that and see if you can notice more about it. Are there subtler sensations under the surface? Does it amplify? Does it weaken as you pay attention to it? So essentially, this is just the decision about when you return to the breath. And you want to decide now what type of approach you're taking, because what we want to avoid is taking a closed approach with almost everything, but then that thought comes up that you really want to investigate and you're thinking for a while. Or you really want to investigate everything and you're with all the other objects of attention for a while, but then that icky feeling comes up and you'd rather just go to the breath so you don't investigate it. So make that decision of how investigative versus how concentrated you want to be. And remember that if something comes up in meditation that's overwhelming, especially with these longer sits in half an hour, it's okay to be skillful with that, to realize that you're getting overwhelmed, and to use a touch and go technique where if it's feeling overwhelming, you return to the breath strategically to get the balance back in your mind. And then when you're ready, you can return to that other difficult thing that's pulling your attention. So, 3 major choices: the primary object of attention, the use of mental noting, and investigation versus concentration. So be firm in what you decide, prepared to stick with it and to see how it goes. Just like you have sat through many meditations, giving meditation as a whole a full try with 12 meditations, make sure you give any approach to practice the full try. So you are now in your own practice. You still might like hearing my voice, it might keep you on track, or not. You might be ready to fly and say goodbye to my voice. But regardless of where you fall, I will start giving instructions a little more sparingly during this meditation. I'll come back with a minor vengeance tomorrow as we try a new, deeper technique. But today, just trust yourself. Trust that you've meditated sufficiently at this point to have skills, to know what meditation is and what it's about, and to have a sense of judgment about your practice, to be able to make judgment calls, to be able to decide what's most skillful for your practice right now. If something comes up that makes you want to adjust your posture, or to scratch an itch, or to do something else, just making an adjustment for yourself, remember to notice that urge if you can, before you just compulsively stretch or compulsively do what you have to do. But if you do notice it multiple times, it keeps coming into your attention, you can do what you have to do. Just try and do it slowly, with mindfulness, noticing the changes in sensations, the relief, the change in temperature, or whatever it might be, as you make that adjustment. Maintaining mindfulness as you act, which maybe even is a more powerful training than our normal meditation, because it's ultimately mindfulness as we act that we're going to take into life. So mindfulness doesn't end. It ebbs and flows. It might get really low if we're doing something pretty unconsciously, but it's never zero and it's never perfect. So our goal is just to cultivate mindfulness, to get used to more mindfulness as we're sitting in an easy situation to be mindful, and ultimately to bring that mindfulness to the world. The world needs it. External situations are often approached best if we've first done this internal work. If we've done enough internal work to respond rather than react to situations, and to really mindfully choose how we want to relate to the external world, what choices we want to make. Our ability to make choices, to be firm with the choices, to make the best of the choices, and in the long term, over multiple practices, to change our choices, is a training in and of itself. I mention the Buddha from time to time, not because I'm a Buddhist, but just because the Buddha's life was quite instructive, teaching lessons of balance and this concept of the middle way. So the super short story is the Buddha grew up as royalty, as a prince, extremely wealthy, extremely sheltered. At some point or another, realized this wasn't the life for him, a life that would allow him to be free, and so became an ascetic, started starving himself, mutilating himself, and trying to achieve enlightenment that way, eventually realizing that it wouldn't work, and eventually finding what he called the middle way. The middle way between gratifying ourselves and denying ourselves. And that concept of the middle way applies to almost every choice we make in meditation and in life, finding the right balance. It applies to finding the right balance between investigating a sensation and sticking with the primary object. It applies to finding the right balance between listening to me versus listening to yourself, using skillful means, noticing when the balance in your mind has been lost and you do need to take a time out from the decisions you've made and go back to something like counting the breaths. I do this all the time. If the balance in my mind is lost, I'll just return to a simple concentration practice. Establish some calm, get out of the weeds, so to speak, and then at the right time, go back into the weeds. So always try and remain balanced and find the middle way as you make decisions in your practice, feeling out what's right for you, knowing that the person who knows the most by far about what's right for you is not the guy giving instructions to hundreds of people at once that are supposed to apply to everyone the same way. It's you. You know your practice better than anyone knows your practice. Whatever comes up in meditation is something to notice, and whatever your reaction to that thing is also something to notice. So this meditation has been different. I'm encouraging independence, and you can notice how you relate to that. What reactions is that causing? Why? What reactions does my voice cause when I talk, when I instruct, when I tell a story? Is it different times? Is there an expectation? Are you anticipating instructions or talking? Or are you just in this present moment, just with this breath, or just feeling the body right now? This is still about what I said it was about the very first time we meditated together, that first session, coming back here, now, to this. It's about the present moment, being right here for it, being with this, right now. How has the silence been for you? Is it difficult, challenging? Often when we break away from guided meditation and we meditate on our own, that's pretty tough. We don't have that automatic reminder of what we're doing, that automatic reminder to gently come back to the primary object of attention. So without that reminder, can you still practice? Can you be okay with how practice is going? Can you remember that even if you wander, even if you think hundreds of times, even if you are thinking for minutes and minutes. So long as in that moment where you notice, that moment when you realize you're thinking, that mindful moment that you can celebrate, so long as in that moment you gently return your attention back to the primary object of attention, you are practicing correctly, with patience for yourself, letting go of judgment of yourself, and just allowing whatever is coming up in practice right now to be there. Allowing that to be okay. Merely sitting here with this intention you have is doing something for you. So don't stress about what results you notice. Don't stress about how much calm you feel. It changes day to day, and even beyond that. We get into this practice of meditation out of some desire to be less anxious or to be a little calm, a little more calm during crazy times, to concentrate better, to do better with our work. But ultimately, as we meditate more, we see that everything that comes up in meditation is impermanent, impersonal, and not ultimately satisfying. So these things we want, it's the trick that humans play on themselves. These things we want, or we think we want, we convince ourselves it'll bring lasting happiness. Wow, that 30 minutes went fast. So anyway, I'll finish my spiel, but open your eyes, go ahead and end the meditation, and notice how you feel. And however you feel, remember that we're not striving for any feeling in particular. There's nothing in particular to want. It's a tricky, nuanced point. But even though we get into meditation to have these effects, and those effects do happen, and they're great, that quality of craving, of wanting, of needing to be calm, or needing approval or praise or love, or to be on a reality show, or to get attention, or to be noticed, whatever it is, whatever comes up, it has this quality of not being ultimately satisfying. So you either know what you want and you're trying to get it, or you get what you want and you no longer know what you want because you realize what you got actually wasn't what you thought it would be. It didn't give you this permanent happiness that you thought it would give you. So that applies to things we want in life, and it applies to meditative states. So the meditative states can be great. They can be calm. This can be a healing practice. I'm seeing a lot of good comments actually. Mindful, calm, clarity. And some other chatting that was happening while we were meditating. So I've spent time on retreats really, really wanting that breakthrough, that mystical experience, and then eventually realizing how foolish I was, because there's nothing really to want. Any experience is going to arise and pass away. And this can come off as depressing, nihilistic, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to relate to it negatively. You can just take meditation as an opportunity to look into this and to hold life a little loosely, to have fun with it, to be playful and not take yourself too seriously. So yeah, as I got lost myself in the end of that meditation and time ran out, that's what was on my mind. All right, 30-minute did go by quite fast. I agree, Broccoli Dad. Hello from Indonesia. Hey there. The silence was tough. You were good for the first 20 minutes. So yeah, you might reach a certain point, a certain threshold where the mind just gets restless, and it might be different days, but again, just notice the restlessness and be okay with potentially a chaotic last 10 minutes of meditation, a difficult few minutes of meditation. It happens to everyone. What is the optimal time for meditation? So if you haven't seen it, you should check out my episode 0, where I go over all of the really frequently asked questions. The best time to meditate is whenever you have time to meditate. If you have the habit in place and you're not worried about it, the morning is a great time, before bed is a great time. Kind of bookending it around sleep can be effective. I was a bit distracted due to sneeze, okay? If you sneeze, just notice that you sneeze. Simple as that. I found a lot more difficult today focusing on the senses. For some reason, my thoughts were sporadic. All right, so maybe you were using the body as a primary object, James, and that was tough. I found with the body, it seems to vary a little more, at least for me personally. Sometimes it's just the perfect object. I'm right with it, so grounded, so embodied, and sometimes I just cannot get my mind to care about the body. And so you can use different practices different times, but you also want to be somewhat firm in your choices, where within one practice, especially if it's just half an hour, you're pretty much sticking to a practice and seeing what that practice can bring up, because the mind will have all sorts of reactions to things. And when something difficult comes up, it's easy for the mind to create a narrative that, oh, this is not good practice, it's not effective, it's not working. And really what might be happening is you subconsciously don't want to be there with whatever it is. Hey to Algeria. Hey Dexter, I focus on the breathing later on, but I was transitioning to sensations automatically. Okay, so that happens as well. So if you're with a primary object, anything else can come up, can draw our attention. And so you don't have to see that as a threat to your primary object of the breath. If it's happening all the time, then you're getting into a more open practice, and that's fine. You're getting into a practice of more investigation, where you're going to different bodily sensations that become predominant, and nothing wrong with that. It's a Buddhist approach to dealing with trauma and fear. I'm not sure if you're referring to my approach, but I just want to be clear on the Buddhism point, because I do draw on Buddhism. I find the Buddha inspiring, but I'm not a Buddhist. I don't teach Buddhism. I'm not qualified to teach Buddhism. I just find a lot of the things that were said by this remarkable figure in a pre-literate society in 600 or 500 BC to be profound and insightful, and really incredible that someone at that point in time was able to have these insights into causality and how our minds work, and also incredible that we can actually hear the words from him. So if you compare it to other religious traditions, I don't view any religious tradition as better or more insightful or less insightful, but we just heard a lot more from the horse's mouth with Buddhism. There's a ton out there in the suttas of what the Buddha actually explicitly said. If you compare it to Christianity, we have some from Jesus, but a lot of it is the disciples. We just don't have as much. My object of focus was the area between my eyes. Then for a second, it felt like I was riding or driving a spaceship. That was my body in the outer space. Okay. So notice that sensation. So your concept of feeling like a spaceship in outer space is based on something, right? You got that idea, that sensation based on sensations, based on smaller sensations, based on experiences. So just being with those experiences, and if the experience is one of feeling, like you are not in the body, or like you are sort of floating around, be right there for that. That's a great experience to be there for, and see what comes up. All right. Got some book recommendations in here from Broccoli Dad, who is not a dad or broccoli, apparently, I've learned. Can you concentrate on multiple parts of the body at once, or should you focus on one at a time? For example, back pain and gut pain. So, attention is a really tricky thing. I don't think attention truly can be in two places at once, but attention can have a quality of being a little scattered and sort of being on the background more than the foreground. So it's very possible to have multiple things feeling like they're in your attentional field, but the direction of your attention should be focused in one place. So if the back pain is most predominant, you're there, you're aware of the gut pain, you feel it, but you're with the back pain. And then when the gut pain becomes more predominant, you can switch. You're with the gut pain. And when you're with pain, try and be very clear on what it is you're with. So you want to be with the objective, as much as you can, the objective sensations. If you're in the story of, oh, this is painful, I don't like this is really unpleasant, I don't want to look at this, you're amplifying the pain. So you want to look at how much of the pain is mental, how much is physical. It's not to say that it might be, legitimate and valid and physical and distressing. It easily could be. There's no guarantee that it'll go away just from you looking at it objectively. But if you do look at it objectively, you can at least stop yourself from blowing it up in your head, amplifying the pain mentally. All right, I love to hear it. I cannot pronounce your name. Navkrishana. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm glad to hear that. And hello back to New Jersey. A lot of people from New Jersey. Do I find it easier to meditate in silence or with background noise? I would say in silence. There's almost always some background noise or another, even if it's the sound of silence, which there's a book called The Sound of Silence, which is very good. But yeah, I would recommend silence as much as you can. Is it possible to meditate during sleep? I've had lucid dreams where I actually did decide to meditate, but that's not a sustainable way to practice. Okay. All right, cool, Michael. It sounds like a really neat experience. Remember that any meditative experience is just something to let go of. It's an arising, not something to cling to. But yeah, you've been meditating for a while. It's possible to start having some cool experiences. Okay. All right, Malaysia. Hello, hello. I got behind on the comments, so I'm just catching up here, kind of rapid fire. Muchotos, you're welcome. All right, I think that's about it. Covered most of it today, so thanks for practicing with me. I'm proud of y'all for getting through 9 days. And we've got 3 more, so I'm going to jump back in with more instructions tomorrow. We're going to do a deep practice. It might be hard for some of you. It might be amazing for others of you. It's going to be a practice of open awareness where we say goodbye to the idea of an anchor for a period of time. But after today, and even during today, hopefully, you're able to do this practice on your own. You're able to direct your own practice and to cultivate mindfulness. So exciting stuff. You can thank yourself for cultivating this skill, for getting to within 3 days of finishing this challenge. And I will see you tomorrow. All the best.